Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by Speedstream. I'm Jim Cardle. He's the former president of the Border Trade Alliance, currently serves as chair of the Border Commerce and Security Council, and is a nationally recognized expert in border trade and border security, and a guest on Fox News Latino. He's also recently joined us as a co-host of the Texas Insider Texas Talk show with Cesar Martinez. We're glad to be able to visit today with Nelson Balido. Nelson, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here.
I hope to be able to jump into a couple of these areas of expertise that I just mentioned, but in particular, and first off, let's start with this, because you mentioned a second ago that you just returned from a trip to D.C. meeting with the deputy chief of the Border Patrol, and got a personal briefing. Tell us what you learned there. What's the state of affairs on the border?
Well, the state of affairs is that we know that there's about 16% more apprehensions this year over last year. There is more traffic, illegitimate trade and travel coming over the borders over last year. I'm not sure why that's happening, but what I will say is that one of the things that's happening is that they're launching a campaign that is called the South Texas Campaign, where the Border Patrol has gone in, looked at the current sectors where they're at, and kind of has chopped them up in smaller sections and more manageable sections. What we find out is currently we've had, since October of last year through present numbers, about 410,000 apprehensions. That's still historically low, however, higher than last year.
Okay.
But the very interesting issue there is about 35% of those are what they call OTMs, or other than Mexican. And 80% of the OTM traffic that's coming in through that southern border is coming in through the McAllen sector. So that's very interesting to have, in the sense that Mexicans in this particular sector, it's not Mexicans that are mostly going through that sector, it's anybody other than a Mexican. 95% of those people are Central Americans. The other 5% of those people is a big question mark. They can be from Indian descent, Chinese, Middle Eastern countries, or just countries of interest. And those are things that this STC campaign, the South Texas campaign that the Border Patrol just launched, will be focusing on. How do we plug in some of those holes? What we found that's very interesting is when SBI-Net was put in Arizona.
SBI-Net being the technologically advanced towers, cameras in place in a couple sectors along the border.
Couple sectors. The Secure Border Initiative.
Okay.
Part of a Bush-era plan to secure that part of the country.
Okay.
That's done a pretty darn good job over the years, where we've seen a lower scale of apprehensions, because they're coming in through other areas. Well, because
there's been a change in behavior. They know they can be caught in one area, they move to the McAllen area.
Yeah, and we really don't know why they've chosen McAllen, other than it is a path of least resistance at this point. But the coyotes, the illegal trafficking, and so forth, they tend to choose a particular sector and move there. And that's what that STC campaign will do, is they'll take a look at where some of these porous areas are. They'll move in assets to be able to intercept accordingly and really drive those numbers back down. So it's very interesting, because I think as we look at the way that cartels are moving around, and we're trying to get some preemptive intelligence through our assets on the ground, we're able to be much mobile than we were before.
Let me ask you, if I can, because you mentioned the McAllen sector. There, I believe, is a Tucson sector, in the north side, a Detroit sector, a sector out of North Dakota, but then also the Laredo sector. Talk about the sector strategy and tactics.
Well, it's obviously a lot of that's classified that I'm not even privy to, but when you look at different sectors of the Border Patrol, in Texas, there's various sectors: Rio Grande Valley, Laredo sector, the Del Rio Eagle Pass, and what they call a West Texas sector. So there's about 4 sectors just in Texas alone.
Okay.
Each one has its own headquarters, its own staff, its own management. And with this STC plan, what it does is goes in there and has an overarching goal to, in a joint effort, to combine powers from all the sectors to make sure they're attacking very specific areas of interest, so to quell that, not only that violence, but the illegal entry and the illegal trade that's coming through those areas.
Okay, before getting into some of the trade and economic, let me ask one final question. Was there any discussion about the new initiative? What's the timeline in the rollout? Do you know what?
Well, the timeline is, from what I understand, it's as needed, but it's already been rolled out. In fact, I was after leaving D.C. last week, I went to McAllen, and during my visit there, the secretary, the undersecretary, which has taken Napolitano's position at this point,
Okay.
was out there actually looking at the STC campaign. I had an opportunity to speak to the commander of the STC campaign, which is a new a 3-star from the Border Patrol, and had some very positive views on what was happening. He shared that the numbers are definitely declining and the strategy is working. The goal here is to making sure that our Border Patrol not only has the resources and the personnel that they need, because they absolutely need that, but to be mobile and to be able to move around depending on the situation on our country's border. That's what's given us the advantage. Where perhaps a little bit before we're a little bit more stale, a little, so those are all things that are definitely working in our favor.
Okay, we'll be watching for the rollout and the hopeful success of that initiative. But then changing subjects a little bit to economics and trade, you've been involved in a chamber of commerce of sorts along the entire border for a lot of your career. Tell us just a little bit, if you can, because it's huge, probably larger than most realize. What are some of the economic numbers and the volume of trade we have with Mexico?
Well, we have nearly $500 billion of trade with Mexico on an annual basis, just on the southwest border alone. For Texas, it's actually around $12 to $13 billion per month. We are the biggest trading partner for Mexico, and they are our biggest trading partner for Texas, back and forth. So when we're looking at the Texas border, there's multiple ports of entry, from Laredo to McAllen to Brownsville to Eagle Pass, Del Rio, and even all the way up to El Paso. So there's a lot of multiple ports of entry where products and services come in to Texas and actually feed the rest of the country. Not only the plasma TV made by LG to the grocery store lettuce that comes in from different parts of Mexico that we depend and expect to have at our grocery store. So there's a lot of different areas where the economic interaction happened throughout the state of Texas. And it's major. It's major because 1 in 4 jobs in the state of Texas depend on trade with Mexico. So it's very important for the state of our economic health and really the vitality of our state of affairs in the state of Texas.
You mentioned the food industry. I know that's an area that a lot of folks won't realize our grocery stores are dependent on, but
Right.
I'm envisioning miles or an extended line of trucks and produce coming over the border. Is that accurate, or is there progress? Are there plans in progress to improve that transition of border wait times?
Well, there is some plans, but the unfortunate problem is for years now, we have not funded the border adequately when it comes to the infrastructure, technology, or really the personnel. The guys in blue, which is very different from the guys in green that we all love, the Border Patrol. Well, the guys in blue that handle all our products and services, that actually check you in when you come in at an airport or a land port, those guys are absolutely undermanned, and they absolutely don't have the resources. So there's been some attempts from the Mexican government to improve infrastructure on their side. Unfortunately, for much of the United States, for 4 to 5, 6 years, it's been very little investment because there just simply hasn't been any money to invest.
If I can switch gears a little bit on you, Nelson, one final question that has to do with visas and the processing of folks coming and going. Talk about the exit program, at least briefly, and how you see the government acting here. A lot of focus on immigration reform,
Sure.
but yet there is this exit program that maybe could be addressed more quickly that would have a great impact.
Great question. Well, the Senate, or rather the House committee, the subcommittee on Border and Maritime, is actually going to be debating this over the next few weeks. There's going to be a hearing in the next week or so from Chairman Candace Miller from Michigan to
Okay.
talk about exit. So we're definitely looking forward to see what it's going to look like. So exit is a system where, just the same way as Disneyland has turnstiles, when they count you when you come into the park, well, all we're saying here is we want to count you when you leave the state of Texas or our United States, which is our park, right?
Okay.
So with the system, what it does is when you are a 994 visitor or a laser visa holder from the United States, you go through a system called the U.S. visit system. Biometrics, pictures, and so forth that are taken, registered in a database. You're given your ID or your visa to come and visit our country. But the biggest problem that we have, and over the years, 40% of the illegal immigrants in this country have been visa overstays. In other words, we've given them a pass to come to this country, but if they've decided that they like it here much better than where they came from, and now they're among us. We never know when they've left. So on our ports, our land ports of entry do not have an exit system, a biometric exit system, to basically tally people to let us know when they left their country. Now, we love Mexicans to come over, to stay at our hotels, buy our gas, go to our grocery stores, our malls, and they do that. And we welcome Mexicans, Central Americans, anybody from around the world. We love tourism here in the state of Texas and in the United States. And we want to welcome that. All we're saying here is we just want to know when you've left. Because at that point, that's when we literally attack the number one problem of illegal immigrants in this country, which is not the border runners, it's the visa overstay issue.
The visa overstay issue, that committee hearing, something we'll be watching, maybe have you back in a couple weeks to visit about as well. And folks, be sure and join us for Nelson and Cesar Martinez Texas Talk on Texas Insider TV. Nelson, thanks for coming in and joining us.
It's great to be here like always. Thank you, Jim.
Nelson Balido, chairman of the Border Commerce and Security Council and Texas Talk Show host. We appreciate you joining us for this edition of Texas Insider TV. Remember, you're either an insider or you're not. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks for joining us.